Hey, good day to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Whatever time of the day you find yourself tuning in, listening to this particular message or watching this video, good day to you. My name is Jerrie'Me Wright, and today is actually Monday, October the 26th, 2020, and it's 6 o'clock p.m. right now. Nevertheless, I wanted to and I needed to get back on to actually finish a video that I started maybe a few days back. We were actually in this particular series or topic on fathers, and in dealing with the last video, God the Father and Kingdom Business, we read Luke the second chapter 1 through 52 in its entirety. And in reading that particular chapter in the Gospel according to Luke, we actually got on the topic of marriages. And as I stated in that video, I believe it would have to be a two-part video because I knew I was not going to be able to actually put everything in that particular video without being extra long-winded. Therefore, I wanted and needed to break the videos up into two and have a video on marriage separately, whereby one can actually find it easier than actually going to God the Father and Kingdom Business, because we were dealing with the topic of fathers. And while we will continue to deal with the topic of fathers, in reading Luke the second chapter and talking about and dealing with Joseph and Mary, what we actually came across that particular day was the simple fact that Joseph was a man who was to get married to Mary. And because he was to get married to Mary, he actually discovered and found out that Mary was actually pregnant with a child. And during that particular time, she was not married. Therefore, she could have, faced a whole lot of opposition and trouble because she was unmarried, yet and still she was pregnant with a child. Nevertheless, the Bible lets us know that Joseph, being the man that he was, did not want to make Mary a public example. And because he did not want to make Mary a public example, he kept it on the hush hush. He did not say anything to anyone about this woman being pregnant with a child. And I believe in dealing with that, I actually made reference to one of my sisters in Christ at church in our young adult group. In our study last week, she actually made the she actually brought up the statistics about divorces in marriages during the coronavirus. And she said basically since the coronavirus started, divorce rates has doubled. Since the coronavirus has started, divorce rates have doubled. And for me hearing that, of course, that was and is something that is disheartening to know and hear that divorce rates have doubled since the coronavirus has started, only because I desire to see married people stay married. And if I can help it, I encourage those who are married to actually stay married if possible. And we're about to deal with the things and the reasons why, one should not stay married if it's not an option, which, is always an option, yet and still, these three reasons I will go over are basically reasons whereby, it's definitely time to consider moving on with your life. But when we think about marriage, that is indeed the first institution that God basically ordained. Marriage was and is that first institution that God ordained. And when God ordained marriage, marriage was and is a beautiful thing. Marriage is and was a beautiful thing. And we have to understand that marriage is a beautiful thing, and because it's a beautiful thing, we should encourage more people, to actually, consider, who they are marrying and when they are marrying them, who they are marrying and when they are marrying them. That's very important. That same sister in our young adult class actually had asked the question. She asked the question, and she basically was asking the question whereby, why do you marry? Basically, what's the purpose of you getting married? And immediately, me being myself, and I guess answering that question first, the response that was given was basically, she said, do you marry for love? Why do you marry? And my response was, and still is, you marry for purpose. You marry for purpose. Whenever you decide to get married, you ought to have purpose at the forefront of your mind. Anyone who decides to get married should have purpose at the forefront of your mind. And not only should you have purpose at the forefront of your mind, but you should also consider the person that you're marrying. Is this person someone that can help fulfill the purpose that God has for my life? That is very critical and crucial question to ask. Is this person someone that is actually going to make me better? That is a very important question to ask. Does this person see marriage as a team effort? That is a very important question to ask. Or does this person see me, her spouse, as competition? That is a very important question to ask. So I know, in the 21st century culture and world, it's so easy to get up and caught up into marriage, as far as the wedding, the lights, and all of that. But yet and still, you do not marry just to say that you're married. You do not marry just basically for status sake. You do not marry because your friends are married and you are single. You do not marry basically for sex. That's a good one. You do not marry for sex. I understand what the Apostle Paul says, and I agree with him that during that time, what he was saying to the body of believers, is better to marry than to burn. Yet and still, if you are actually going into a marriage with that as your sole reasoning of getting married, you have to consider this thing that I always come to say, and as a younger boy and younger man coming up, I always said that I would never marry someone based on the physical. I would never marry someone based on the physical. I would never marry someone basically based on the sex. Because what happens to the relationship when you can't be physical? So you have a whole lot of people that get married because they cannot control themselves, and they want basically to have this particular experience but they want to do so without sinning against God. And you have people who actually marry people just to have sex, and that's so unfortunate. But these are some real talk. As I talk about marriage, these are some things that we must understand. We're not marrying someone for status. We're not marrying someone just to say that we're married. We're not marrying someone basically because our friends are married and we're single. No, we're not marrying somebody just to have sex. Are you serious? Like, I don't even get that. I don't even get that whole point, because if you're going to marry somebody just for sex, then you might as well stay unmarried. Because what you're going to do is mess up not only your life, but you're going to mess up that person's life that you marry. And if you have kids, you're going to mess up their lives as well, because then they're going to take on this whole they're going to take on this whole idea that it's okay, to basically marry for the wrong reasons. And that's why whenever you, as an individual, a single individual, decide to get married, you must have pure motives, you must have pure intentions, and you definitely must have a pure heart. I'm going to say that again. You must have pure motives, you must have pure intentions, and you must have a pure heart. You should not have, dishonest intentions. You should not have bad motives, and you should not have an impure heart when you get into marriage. And that's something that I just encourage my single individuals to hear, and hear loud and hear clear. Don't take marriage lightly. Don't take that decision lightly, because so many people do take that decision lightly, and because they view it as though, hey, I'll just get in this marriage, and hey, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I will, basically repent and get into another marriage. That's why you have high divorce rates. That's why you have people who've been married 3, 4, and 5 times. And that's simple fact that they basically, something is the underlying problem whenever you have people in and out of marriages. And you have to ask yourself and basically assess what it is that this individual is in and out of marriage for. Like, what is it? I mean, okay, after the first time, maybe that didn't work, but after the second time, what is it? That didn't work. After the third time, you just scratching your head now, like, okay, this is going a little bit too far. Like, what is your intention? What is your motive? What is your heart desire in getting in and out of marriages like that? Treating marriage as some dirty clothes. You cannot treat marriage as some dirty clothes. And it's funny because I washed a load of clothes today, and what I've discovered in washing those clothes is that, when the clothes are dirty, of course, you can throw them in the washer, wash and dry them, fold them or hang them up or whatnot. But you cannot treat marriage as dirty clothes, whereby, hey, it don't work out. Okay, I just get out of this and into another one and go through that repetitive cycle. The devil is a lie. And not only are we talking about marriage here, but we're going to move now into the issue of divorce. Now, I must confess and I must admit that I am a product of a divorced family. I come from a family who was separated and divided because of divorce. And because I am a product of divorce and I've seen my parents divorce, it's always been my heart's desire to always encourage people to remain married, to remain married if possible, if possible, because I do understand now that it's not always possible to stay married. And there are three main reasons I like to share with you whereby it's just not possible to stay married. And this first reason, whereby you're not going to stay married, or you shouldn't actually allow yourself to be subjected to stay in a marriage if this man or this woman is being beat day in and day out. There are men and women who are actually being abused in all kind of ways, day in and day out. And if you come to understand your worth and your value, then you're not going to subject yourself to that kind of treatment. And not only is abuse one, but we move now to this idea of adultery. When we're talking about adultery now, though, what I'm talking about is a man or a woman who actually is basically making themselves available to everyone in the community. They're making themselves available to everyone that basically they so desire. So you have individuals, unfortunately, in marriage who actually prostitute their bodies in marriage. They basically have a part-time job in prostitution. And whenever you have somebody who's committing adultery on that level and in that magnitude, you have to consider, are you going to subject yourself to this type of treatment, or do you deserve better? And I believe the answer is you deserve better. We all deserve better. Therefore, if that man or that woman is actually subjecting themselves to that type of living while they're married, then you have to ask yourself, like, is this okay? Am I okay with this? Even if you're not okay with it, God is not okay with it. And I'm going to go ahead and just debunk a myth right here, since I'm on the topic of adultery. Many times, even especially within the body of Christ, we have this idea that adultery is only the physical act. But let me tell you, adultery is not just the physical act. Adultery is not just the physical act. And I know I'm busting some bubbles right about now, but adultery is not just the physical act. And you must come to know and understand that it's not just the physical act. As we read in Matthew 5, I believe, in 27, 28, one of those verses, Jesus actually said, if you look at a man or a woman with lust, you have already committed adultery in your heart. So there are some secrets in the hearts of man and woman that we do not always see. And I know that there are times that, a man or a woman can actually admit that, hey, yeah, I committed adultery. I repent, I turn, and, that's not something that I'm continuing in. Yet and still, when you have someone who's continuing in something, you have to ask yourself now, okay, I forgave you once, I forgave you twice, I forgave you three times, and you're still continuing in the same repetition, and you have not allowed yourself to be set free from what you are doing. Therefore, divorce, we see that abuse, we see adultery, and last and certainly not least, the kids. If you're married and you have kids, and those kids' safety are in jeopardy, you might want to consider, removing yourself from that situation. You might want to consider removing yourself from that situation. It's not the simple fact that the divorce rates have doubled since the coronavirus. We understand that those divorce rates may have doubled, and that may be accurate. Yet and still, these three reasons I just listed are three reasons whereby you should consider definitely getting that divorce. And and only you would know what's taking place, and only you and your spouse would know what's going on. Therefore, that's going to be between you, God, and your spouse, because God is that third strand. God is that third cord that binds you together. And when you stood before that man, or when you stood before that woman, you made a vow, you made a covenant, you made a commitment to God and that person. And it's only God and that person that you're going to break that vow. And just to go ahead and continue with these debunking these myths, because I actually heard this recently. The simple fact that women ought to find a man, it has never been God's design for a woman to find a man. That is a lie, that is of the devil, and that is not of God. A woman should not be out seeking after a man. And another lie and another myth is the simple fact that, we have people who think that, women should actually uh, find a man who's able to pay their bills. Now, if that is not only a lie, but that is definitely not of God. I mean, you as a woman, should not first be seeking a man, and two, you shouldn't be looking after a man, looking for a man who's able to pay your bills. No, you shouldn't be looking at the man to pay your bills. Are you serious? What we call that is what we call that. If I was in the streets, we call that a gold digger. And you don't want to be no gold digger. I know for myself, for my girls, I would never teach my girls, one, to one, seek after a man, and two, to find somebody who can pay your bills. As a father, and I know we're not on a father topic right now, but I'm just saying, as a father, I would never teach my girls to look for a man and then look for a man who can pay your bills. Now, there are times in people's lives whereby God actually orchestrates, whereby that man is able to pay your bills, and that's a blessing if that's the case. But do not go in with that intention, because that's impure motives off the top. That's bad intentions off the top. And I actually recently, maybe a month and a half ago now, visited my brother in the hospital. And upon visiting him, there was this nurse aide that came inside the room, to help him out and get him right. And we began to talk, and we had a great conversation or whatnot. But she just was sharing with me how today's time and today's culture has changed so much, as we discuss marriage. For she was someone who was married before, yet and still, her husband ended up leaving her. Nevertheless, she was just saying that thinking, even of her female counterparts, is so different today than it ever was, because she was just stating how, people today, females today, excuse me, actually believe that very thing. They believe that, they have to have a man who is basically going to take care of them, or someone who's in a place where they can pay all their bills and do whatever they want with their money. And she was just saying, it's sad. Not only is it sad, but it lets you know that people don't value building together. And she just blew my mind, because the simple fact that it's nothing like building together. As my father was actually someone who was a builder, and he would build homes or whatnot. And one thing that I learned about building homes is the simple fact that the deeper the foundation, the higher that building can be erected. I said the deeper the foundation, the higher that building can be erected. And a lot of times marriages don't grow and don't flourish because it's surface level love. You have people who get married and they're so shallow, and they marry for the wrong reasons, for the wrong motives, with the wrong intentions, with the wrong heart, and with the wrong intentions. Therefore, because they do, it's no room for growth. That's why you have to take your time, get to know someone, and then make that decision to marry or not, or whether or not, is this someone who can actually, help with purpose sake. Because if y'all do not have that understanding, hey, we got married, not for one another, but we got married for the sake of purpose. Come on through here. So often, we abandon purpose. We abandon purpose because of our flesh and what we want and what we desire. But if we can put what we want and what we desire on the back burner for just a second and say, not my will, but your will be done. I know this young lady who actually, started this great foundation and is still flourishing to this day. And this particular individual, her purpose is basically surrounded by this foundation. Her purpose is basically, you know surrounded by, the company, the nonprofit company that she actually built. And when I think about it, I think about, someone who know what their purpose is. And I said to myself, Lord, definitely bless her with the right individual who will be able to help her, fulfill her purpose, as she will be able to help him fulfill his purpose in life. Therefore, I would just encourage you today, to know that marriage is the first institution instituted by God, and marriage is something that is beautiful. It's something not to take lightly, and it's something that, God designs for a lifetime, and God does not desire to see any of His children get divorced. And as I stated, there are various reasons, three that I named, that people do get divorced for. And we consider these things, if we make that decision to get divorced. But yet and still, and all of that, we must come at the end of the day and say, Lord, not my will, but your will be done in marriage and or in divorce. Your will be done. So if you're someone who actually are divorced, you be encouraged and know that, as the shirt said, Jesus is bigger. Jesus is bigger. So life do not stop after you get married. Life do not stop if you get divorced. Life continues to move forward, and life continues to move on. You just have to continue to seek the face of the Lord. So you take care and be blessed.